Now, Corpse Party is a game that took me forever to play, and I mean forever, because I've known about this series for a long time, mainly because I watched the anime first. And if you know anything about the anime, you know the anime really isn't that good of an adaptation. But when it comes to the game, I've seen a few people play the game, but I've only seen them play just chapter 1, so I never knew what else happened inside the game until I finally picked the game up from the PlayStation Store because it was on sale one time, and I said, yo, if it ever goes on sale super cheap, I'll buy it. I bought the game, and also I beat the game and I platinum it. And the thing about Corpse Party is it's a horror RPG. It does also have kind of like visual novel stuff when it comes to like some of the cutscenes, quote unquote, for some of the visuals. So that's kind of what this game reminds me of. But the game has an amazing atmosphere. Like the atmosphere is phenomenal because one, you're inside a haunted school, which is also like in a different world, and then you have all these dead bodies and bones, and of course the music sounds so good as you're going around and exploring the school. And one thing I love is that you don't really have no enemies that you have to run from. Yes, you do have quote unquote the ghosts, but it's like, dog, them ghosts move super slow. You would have to stand there to let them catch you. The only time I guess you really have a real person that's chasing after you is Kazumi, and that's not until chapter 5 when you're playing as Yuka. So that, like, for the most part, you're just going around this school learning what exactly happened to the school and how it caused this school to look like this as you switch from different characters from chapter to chapter, or chapter 5 how you literally switch from 2 different groups at the same time. You can do that. So that's one of the things I just love. And then also the story is pretty good, but there are parts in the story that are very questionable, certain parts, but it is a pretty interesting just plot for the story. And then there's also a lot of characters I'll say that I do hate. There's 2 characters I hate with a passion, and I mean I hate them with a passion. I'm talking about Yuka and Ayumi. Now the reason why I hate Yuka is because she's a 14-year-old girl acting like she is 5 years old. That's the main reason why I hate her character type. But I mean, you can also tell why she has that character type because this game is the most anime feeling ass game ever. That's why it makes no sense why the anime did not like actually be better. It's mainly because they didn't get enough time, but I digress, because if you've seen a lot of anime, you can tell some of the weird shit that's in this game, and you can tell. And then also the reason why I hate Ayumi is because it's like, bruh, you're the one that caused all this shit in the game, and you're over here crying and all this. Yes, I know this is a scary atmosphere you're in, and yes, it would be terrifying and scary to be put in this situation, but at the same goddamn time, it's your fault why all these people are in this game. But yes, I digress. We'll talk about them later as we go through the chapters, because there's a lot of things that I need to talk about when it comes to the chapter. But yeah, let's talk about the chapters in the story of Corpse Party, and then we're going into that and talk about the gameplay and everything else. But yes, let's talk about Corpse Party. Now, the first thing I want to say is like the prologue slash chapter 1, because it is in chapter 1, but I call it really the prologue. And that's when you're having everybody after the culture festival, they all meet inside the room, and they're all having a go away party for Miyu because she's about to leave and go to another town. So like they're all just celebrating with her, having a little thing and like hugging, taking pictures. Just as it seems like it's time to go, Ayumi comes up with an idea of like, oh, let's do this chant together, or this charm. It's the Sachiko Ever After, and like if this goes through, if we do it right, we'll always be friends forever type of thing. And just know it ends up being wrong, and it causes an earthquake, and all the people they all fall down a hole. And after that cutscene and all that happening, you wake up with Naomi, and like she's lost, and she realizes she's in this school, and she's wondering, she's like, where am I at? And eventually she's gonna run into Seiko. Her and Seiko, as they explore around the school, and like you're running like what exactly you're at in this atmosphere. Naomi's gonna hurt herself down the stairs and eventually go into the infirmary. Seiko's gonna leave. They're gonna spend some time together. Then Seiko leaves, and when she leaves, that's when Naomi gets attacked by like this weird black spirit thing. Also in this situation, just know you need to go grab the matches and all this other stuff ahead of time, or you can get stuck in there and get packed up by the ghost in there. And also this game has wrong ends, and I mean it has a lot of wrong ends that you can get each chapter. Sometimes it's very annoying. Like in chapter 1, there's a part about a newspaper where it says do not read this, and if you do listen to it and you do not read it, dog, it's gonna cause you a bad end. But yeah, once Naomi gets out of there, she runs into Seiko. Her and Seiko have a little argument that causes them to split up. Eventually Naomi's scared and like wondering where Seiko's at, and then she finds her in the girl's bathroom. That's when you see Seiko's getting strangled, and she's about to hang herself, and then Naomi tries to help her, but she ends up not being able to help her, and Seiko passes away and dies. And that's chapter 1. So chapter 2 follows different characters, which is Ayumi, Yoshiki, and Miss Yui. This is the only time you play as Miss Yui, and it's going to be for a real short section because she's going to leave those two, and then she goes out, and then when she goes out, eventually she's going to get hit by like a ghost, and like it drops a cabinet on her, and then the ghost eventually sees that she cares about her students, and then that's the last time we see her until the last chapter of the game. And then with Ayumi and Yoshiki, literally all you're really doing is going around the school exploring until you go to the infirmary. Yes, there is one time I guess Ayumi does like like she sees all the stuff that Naomi and Seiko had to go through, because she sees that because of something's happening to her. But that happens. But they go to the infirmary. When they go to the infirmary, they see that Miyu's in there with the ghost. They try and show the ghost this newspaper, and the ghosts are like, nah, we're not going with that. Then they run out and they meet this girl named Naiho. Naiho basically tells them about like how there's this person that's in the school that regrets everything that he did and all this other stuff. Eventually they're going to get this doll. They go take the doll inside the infirmary to try and give it to the ghost. The ghosts get very upset and they drag Miyu's ass out the infirmary and slam her shit against the wall, and then all her guts and everything splattered there. And just know, we walk past her guts multiple times with so many different characters. But yeah, that's essentially what happens in chapter 2. Yes, there's more stuff that happens, but that's really what happens in chapter 2. Now, chapter 3 is the chapter I hate, because you know what chapter 3 is? It's about, we basically follow Saitoshi and his little sister Yuka, and the whole chapter is basically about Yuka having to take a piss. That's what the chapter is, and you can tell the creators of this game had a fetish, because why is P brought up this goddamn much? And this is why I hate Yuka, because this whole goddamn chapter, her ass could have peed in so many different places. There's buckets all over the school. There's so many other places. You didn't have to use all these toilets just because all them stalls were broken. All this, like, girl, just piss. And it's ridiculous because that's all we're doing this whole chapter, until eventually Yuka goes to take a piss outside, and then her and Saitoshi get split up because you have the earthquake thing that puts them in different dimensions of the school, because that's a thing too. Just know eventually she's gonna meet up with this guy named Kazumi, and just know Kazumi, he ain't good news at all. That man ain't. Just know she's gonna see by the end of the chapter, you're gonna realize that something's not right with him in the head. And that's chapter 3 for the most part. Yes, there's other stuff that happens there, but it's essentially about Yuka having to take a piss, and it's stupid. Like, it's so goddamn stupid. The whole thing is irritating. You know why it's irritating? Because in chapter 5, they thought they were funny. Yuka had to take a piss again, and there's a bathroom that's actually down where you're at in chapter 5 when you're all the way at the bottom of the school, in the basement. And guess what? The stalls are open and Yuka uses it, but if you go do that, it's gonna give you a bad end. That shit pissed me off the first time I did that shit, because I was so goddamn mad, because I was like, y'all game developers think y'all funny. Y'all made a bathroom that actually works, and y'all did this bullshit, and like Yuka had to use it. It just pissed me off, but I digress. Let's talk about chapter 4. Now, chapter 4 follows Ayumi and Yoshiki, and essentially in that chapter, they're going to be going around collecting the tongues of the kids and then giving the kids their tongues, because you find out like what all happened to them. And with them like giving the tongues and returning it to everybody, you have this girl named Yuki, who's one of the ghosts. She opens up a portal and allows those two to get back into the regular world, because they found all the tongues and like they set all the kids like free, in a way, the 3 kids that got packed up. But one of the things Yuki does is she tells Ayumi to basically, you want to experience like who the actual killer was. So she basically goes through like the memories of Yuki, because Yuki does something and Ayumi experiences everything that happened to her, and you find out that Sachiko was the one that was actually packing everybody up. And it's a very terrifying scene for the most part, like the scene that's happening. I will say in the anime it was a little bit more crazy, because in the anime they actually show stuff, when this one is just, you know, it's just pictures and all stuff like that. But that's essentially what happens in chapter 4, is them finding all the tongues and all the crazy places where they're at, and then eventually them actually getting out of this dimension and going back to the real world and not this crazy dimension, and then them finding out what happened to Yuki and all the other kids. Now, chapter 5 is the longest chapter, and so much shit happens in this chapter. There's a lot of irritating things that can happen in this chapter, but the chapter opens up Yuka finding out that Kazumi is crazy, and just know she is going to piss on herself, because I'm pretty sure she does that at the end of chapter 3 or whatever. But she's going to be running away from him because he killed his friend, and like he killed his friend crazily. Like, it's wild the way he killed his friend, because he pushed him like in chapter 3, and then you see like he's buried alive, and like Yuka's trying to talk to him, but that's when Kazumi comes after her. But at this instance, essentially you're gonna have a moment where this is the only one where you actually have an enemy that chases after you, and that's Kazumi. You just got to go all the way around, get this key. It's not really that hard, but he can catch you, but for the most part you should be able to dodge him, because he doesn't really, and you have to be going really slow for him to catch you, but at the same time you need him to catch you to get a wrong end. There's that too. And the rest of this chapter, you have like 2 main things that are happening. You have Saitoshi's group and you have Ayumi's group. And Ayumi's group, what they're doing is they're going around finding all of Naiho's letters that they can essentially go back to her, that you can give her, tell her like exactly what happened between her and her master. And then also with Saitoshi's group, you're going around collecting all these different things for Sachiko, and eventually you're finding out what happened to Sachiko's mother, and that happens in both of the stories, along with what happens to like Naiho's teacher. And I'll say, when it comes to Sachiko's mother, when we actually find out what happened to tour. It is wild. Like, also the principal sucks in here, but there's a scene where we see the principal is grabbing Sachiko and they decide to do a upskirt, and it's weird because that's an elementary school girl, and it's like, why in their right mind did they think we need to show a upskirt of a child? Like, it's so weird. Like I said, there's little instances in here that are very weird, and that's one that made me go like, why? Who thought that was a good idea? Like, it was very, very weird. That scene was very weird. So also, one of the other things that is happening in chapter 5, which is a dumb little thing that happens, is like you have this one random part where Naomi falls into like the floor, and she happens to be in this like mud puddle thing, and you have to get out of there, and if you don't get out of there, you die basically. It's stupid. It's one of them little stupid things that happens. But for the most part, chapter 5 is just you learn everything about what happened to Sachiko. You basically go all the way to the basement, and you have two different things that happens like while you're in the basement. You have a few puzzles that you have to do with all these ghosts. Also, you have Saitoshi and Yuka and Naomi basically splitting up because Naomi runs away because you see Seiko's dead body and she's freaking out. She runs away, and once you meet up with Naomi and Yoshiki, that's when like they're all together, and like Yuki tells them, yo, you have to go through here and just know you can't go back. And like Naomi, she's fighting her own battle. That's what essentially what she tells her. But what you do with Sachiko is like once you go in there, you have to give her a few certain items that are like from her mom, like the cat, and I think it's like the cat, and I think like the mom's diary or something like that you have to give her. And once you do those, Sachiko basically passes away and goes into the afterlife, and now all the kids can escape, but you have to get out the school. You only like you have a certain amount of time you can get out of the school because you have all these different like rings and stuff that are happening, and essentially you get out of there unless you get a bad end. The first one I got is like where Naomi turns evil and she basically attacks everybody that's there. That's one of the bad ends that you can get. But the real ending, they all escape because Naomi eventually comes to when you have to chant with the Sachiko thing, like, and then eventually they get home. And once they get home, you realize that nobody remembers all the people that passed away and got packed up in that dimension. Like, nobody remembers them at all. And you have this talk between Naomi and Saitoshi, and Naomi basically tells her that when she was seeing the stuff, she found out that she was the one that killed Seiko, which is like crazy. You find out that basically she was being controlled by like this black, I think it's called like the black something that's in the game, and she was overcome by that, and she's the reason Seiko died. So that is very crazy and it sucks. But then you find out that like at that moment Seiko kept texting her and saying like how she loves her and all this other stuff, and eventually Naomi was able to get over a little bit. At the same time, I mean, she's never going to get over that because she killed her best friend. So that's essentially what happens in the story. Yes, I know there's way more to the story. I could have went way more in detail saying exactly what happened to each of the kids and like how I went there, because it's essentially because the principal is an asshole, and like he was trying to holler at Sachiko's mom. Sachiko's mom did not want any of that, and essentially he dropped her, he pushed her down the stairs, and she broke her neck. Sachiko saw it. He grabs Sachiko, he kills her. She comes back as an evil spirit, and she kind of basically controls the principal's son, and the principal's son kidnaps all these three kids while he's hiding in the corner, and Sachiko kills all the three kids by cutting off their tongues and like even other stuff, because she cuts off one of their heads, and it's very crazy and disgusting. So yes, she's the reason that all that happens, and eventually the school gets destroyed, but it gets turned into like the same school in a different dimension or something like that, some crazy shit like that. I know there's more to it because there are other games, but them other games ain't worth playing at all because they ain't that good, and they kind of retcon some other stuff, and it's not that good at all. Of course, Party as a game, it is a fun game. It's a game easy that you can platinum to, but I love the atmosphere. Like I said, the music is amazing as you're playing it. Yes, there are weird stuff that happen in the story. There are some funny moments of the story, like when you get like flashbacks between some of the characters and them doing things. Yes, there are some weird flashbacks, because there's a very weird flashback between Seiko and her little brother that happens, I think, in the first chapter, and it's very weird. That shit was very weird. But there also is funny ones where there's one between Seiko and Naomi, and or something, and it's like Seiko's like, oh, I love you because of that booty or something like that. So there's little funny stuff like that, but at the same time there are flashbacks that are very weird. We do have side characters that are shown throughout this game. Like, we have certain characters that are also we run into that are alive in this school, but we barely see them. When it comes to Naho, we have our teacher that also got transported to the school. We learn about him and exactly what he learned, and like how eventually he died because Naho killed him. And then also we have like the guy that was recording, and we've learned things from him because he's the one that recorded what Naomi was doing to Seiko. And also there's a lot of extra chapters that you can play too. You have to unlock them by like sometimes getting some bad ends and stuff like that. that you can unlock. Some of those extra chapters really just flesh out some of these side characters, because one of the things that happens throughout the game is there's dead bodies all over the school, like bones, and we can click on them and we can get their name tag. And some of those extra chapters, we can play as some of those characters that we already know that are gonna die, or we can like figure out what exactly happened at certain events. Because there's one, like for main story wise, where like Yoshiki, where he at the end of the chapter he gets hit by the one principal's son, and we find out like exactly what was happening while he was passed out. So there's little interesting chapters like that. Also, there is one where it was like from like 2020, I think, where like they added like one random new chapter talking about like some girl that got trapped in the school with her friend, but eventually she gets out of there because she gets helped by Saitoshi. So there's little stuff like that. That was like a kind of fun one that they added to the game. Overall, it's a fun game, but it has some weird stuff. It's a game I do go back every once in a while that I do enjoy. One of the things I do like is that you can skip, if you're like replaying this and you don't want to read none of that dialogue, you can skip super fast through this game, because I had to do that a few times, like when I was trying to go through it to get platinums and stuff like that. I think each chapter is pretty good. The chapter I hate the most is chapter 3. Chapter 3 sucks because all the P shit. Chapter 5 can get very irritating, like very irritating, because that's one of them chapters where you have to do everything right or you get bad ends, because there's so many different things you can mess up on by not collecting all Naiho's stuff, by basically not figuring out what happened to Sachiko's mom and just going to the next building over the school. That cuts out all that and you'll never be able to do that. So yeah, there's so many little things. If you don't give the right items to the certain people at certain times, if you move ahead, because each of them can move ahead like super far to like their end game part, and that can mess up the story. But when it comes to the wrong ends, some of them are really crazy, because there's a lot of crazy ones that can happen. There are some that are very irritating. There's also one, so there's these letters, because like in this game you're reading all these different letters and all these different things that are in the game, but there's one section of letters, if you collect 5 out of 5, it will lead to a bad end, because eventually you will read it and you will die. It's wild. So that's one of the crazy things of this game. There's a lot of things in this game that will make you hate the developers, because it's like, y'all are on some bullshit with some of the wrong ends, and then some of the stupid things you have to do to actually complete a chapter the right way. Sometimes it can get very irritating though. But yeah, if y'all play Corpse Party, let me know how y'all feel about it. If y'all never played Corpse Party, why not play it? I know it's on the PlayStation, I know it's on the Switch. Of course, it's been on PC forever. I know originally it was like on the DS, and it might have been on the PSP too at one point. And then I know you have one from back in the day that was like made in the 90s, the first original one that was vastly different than this one that you have too. But yeah, just let me know if y'all play this. If y'all haven't played it, go play it now. It's a pretty fun game, especially if you want to play like a horror game that's a more chill-ish but still has a scary vibe with some of the crazy stuff that's happening there. And especially if you like reading about certain lore and different stuff that is happening in the game, then you really enjoy this one, because this one is packed with a lot of lore. But I will say there are still elements of this game that make you go like, what exactly is happening? There's a whole like summoning circle that's like in one of the buildings where like Miss Yui dies at. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Miss Yui sacrifices herself and dies. I forgot about that. The last thing I do gotta say is, because I said it earlier, we're gonna talk about this, is I hate Yuka with a passion. Because like I said earlier, she's 14, she acts like a 5-year-old, and then she has to piss, and the whole chapter is about her having to piss, and it just shows that the developers had some type of fetish. I'm sorry, y'all had a fetish. If y'all made a whole chapter where a character has to pee and has to pee again the next time you meet them, y'all have a fetish. I'm sorry, they have a pee fetish. Just like if you know anything about prison school, you know the Minecraft prison school has a pee fetish too. But this one, you can tell they have a pee fetish, and they have that weird little girl bullshit, lolly bullshit that they love doing in Japan. Like, that's essentially what Yuka's whole character is. And then Ayumi is like, girl, stop it. Stop crying, stop doing all that shit. It's like, suck it up. You're the one that put everybody in this situation. It's like, it takes her forever to finally grow up here, when it's like, you're the reason why everybody got stuck in this goddamn shit, because you read some shit off the internet. Like, you read that shit off the internet. You did not even, like, why did you try this? You thought this was okay? Oh, let me perform this with my friends. And then, like, you have all these friends that got killed. You know, the thing that sucks is, like, Mayu, she was going to another town. I know she didn't really want to go, but at the same time, it's like, dog, this was her goodbye party, and she got packed up. And I mean, I guess she gets to stay with one cuz that, like, you know, he becomes crazy because he starts taking pictures of all the dead bodies and stuff. I guess they get to stay together forever in that dimension or whatever, but at the same time, it just sucks because she was going to leave. And then it's like, Miss Yui, you should have not sacrificed yourself for this dumb hoe. You should have just dropped Ayumi's ass. And it just sucks because, like, Miss Yui, we only see her one time in chapter 2 when you control her, and then chapter 5 she gets packed up because she has to sacrifice herself, and it just sucks. And then Mayu, Her getting splattered on the wall is probably the craziest thing that happens in this whole entire game, because that was crazy and very disgusting. Like, as you're walking past it, because all the characters walk past it, and it just sucks that they don't know, besides Ayumi and Yosuke are the only two that really know about that. But yeah, I'm done though, because I could go on a tangent about this game, because there's so much mess and BS that's in this game, but at the same time, it is a fun game. It's a pretty chill game that you can play anytime, because it's not a scary game, like, at all. They still have some elements that are creepy, but it's not really scary though. But Corpse Party is just one of these games that if you've not played it, go play it for yourself, that you can experience all the messiness and all the wild stuff and learning about this crazy story, because compared to a lot of other horror games, this one is just strictly focused on the story and the crazy stuff. You're not really fighting no enemies like something like Resident Evil, where you're fighting enemies. Yes, Resident Evil does have a story, but you're fighting enemies, but this one you're just strictly doing some RPG stuff where, yeah, you have little puzzles and little items you got to collect, but at the same time you're just reading, and you're reading a lot about this school, and you're trying to figure out what exactly happened in this place though. But yeah, Corpse Party is a very wild, very crazy game, but it's actually pretty fun though.